talked a lot about the application of language models in financial markets, especially through the lens of time series forecasting and using transformer-based models to forecast different time series values. And I've made some previous videos going over research papers of different applications of those models and the accuracy of those generalized models versus other previous approaches prior to transformers. And recently, I've come across a project that was actually created by a friend of mine, which I think is one of the best applications of language models in financial markets. Ultimately, the strength of foundation models is being able to synthesize a large quantity of unstructured data and also interpret a certain question that's trying to be forecasted to gain a better answer than traditional machine learning models or automated methods. And so what this project is doing is this project is essentially a forecasting arena for people to create their own language models, which interpret different contextual information to forecast and anticipate different key reported metrics from public businesses. So I think that's a lot to take in, but let me just show you what this is. And let me kind of go step by step through what the different information shown on this page means. So first I'll start with the LLM forecast benchmark and what this means. So essentially these language models are presented with different relevant market related questions. So these questions, just for an example, would be similar to this, where for the CVS ticker, Q3 healthcare benefits medical benefit ratio has Atina's MA utilization moderated, and then it gives the model a certain consensus number. So what it's trying to say here, or just something more simple would be a revenue growth number, is this is the uncertain question that the model is trying to answer. Will organic revenue growth be greater than or less than the consensus estimate for this business FI of 12%? And then the models receive that question and give a certain forecast for if it will be above or below consensus and the deviation from that forecast compared to consensus for that key metric that's being reported. So there are different elements to this project which I think are really cool. But first off, the starting point is just the accuracy of the models. And essentially what this LLM forecast benchmark is telling you is, hey, here are the models which were able to answer these questions with the highest accuracy. So Claude Sonnet 4.5 had a 77.3% hit rate across 119 market-related KPI questions, like the two questions that I just displayed a minute ago. And so then what happens here is this is creating a benchmark of saying what model is the best at interpreting and thinking through and then forecasting whether there will be a beat or miss for this key question relative to that of consensus. Now, the reason why I think this is so cool is because ultimately, when you're building a strategy and trying to apply things to markets, there are different elements to doing that, which is, yes, you can get a time series forecasting model based on transformers and try to do that to say, okay, will the stock price go up or down? But very likely, it's exceedingly hard to just forecast raw price action. However, the more you break down that problem set and you say, okay, we're not just going to be forecasting whether the price action is going to go up or down, but we're going to be forecasting, is this, what's going to be the deviation from consensus for this key question related to company performance. In this case, the question was for FI, like what was the organic revenue growth? Was it below or above consensus? And then the models came up with their own answers for that independently. And then you can see the past stats from those models and pick out which model was most accurate at answering that question. So here you can see what the different numbers the models gave. In this case, many of the models just stuck with consensus, which would be the 12% revenue growth. But then you had the most accurate model, which in this case, in the past, it was Claude Sonnet 4.5, and that gave 11.5%, which is 5 points below consensus. And so essentially the most accurate, historically accurate model is anticipating a miss for this key reported metric from this business. So I think this is a really cool project because essentially what's happening here is multi-level, which is one, you're benchmarking what models are going to be the most accurate in forecasting these different metrics. And one element that's likely very important to this is also the type of information that's going into those models. So yes, you could be using Claude Sonnet 4.5, but are you feeding into that like X data? Are you feeding into it news data? And is that being incorporated into coming up with the probability of a beat or a miss for that specific metric? And then the other cool element to this project is the type of questions that come up. So whenever you're building a strategy around like applying language models to markets, you need to ask yourself, well, is this the right question to ask that the model is trying to forecast? So in the case of this business FI, or FI in this case, the model or some system came up with the idea that the Q3 2025 Merchant Solutions organic revenue was the key metric for that quarter, which if there was a beat or miss would be what moved the market. And so this is another element which is really interesting about this forecasting competition, which is the selection of questions. And they actually benchmark that as well, which is, do the questions actually explain the price move? And what this means is, in the case of this company, FI, do they beat the organic solutions revenue? If they beat that consensus metric and the stock price went up, then that would mark the question as being, the question explains the price move. Whereas if they beat that metric but the price went down 10%, then it would be marked as the question did not explain the price move. So there's also an element here of learning and training on what questions will actually move the market and be relevant to take into consideration when trying to understand the performance of that company. And again, this is breaking down like kind of a step behind just price forecasting, because you're not just trying to understand, is the price going to go up or down, but you're decomposing it into, hey, here are these 10 key questions for these crucial KPIs to understand the performance of this business that other market participants care about. And now that we have the questions that will move the market, then you can break that out and forecast where you think that question or that metric will land, and then use that to explain the price action. So if you expect a beat in that key metric and you're confident that that key metric will move the market, then in a way you're still creating a forecast on the price action for that business as well, because likely if they beat on that metric, then the price will go up, if that's truly the question that the market cares about, which in this case, that's what this item here is representing. So that's just a general overview of what this project is, and what some of the metrics mean that are shown here. I think it would be really cool if you're interested in leveraging language models or transformers for financial markets and forecasting price action or forecasting financial KPIs. I highly recommend that you reach out to the creators of this website and potentially try to get involved in forecasting and even submitting new questions that can be presented on the website. So if you have a great language model or forecasting model that you think would be really accurate at forecasting or understanding some of these key KPIs, then you can submit your forecasts to this platform and get recognition, and also potentially access to other opportunities through submitting your forecasts through this platform. And then also I think it's a great place to look at these models and continuously benchmark what base foundation models are most accurate in forecasting some of these financial KPIs. I will leave a link in the description below as well. The website is called flatcircle.ai. And of course, the whole reason I wanted to feature this is because I truly think that from the standpoint of how you can apply language models and transformer models to financial markets, this is the route that is infinitely more interesting than just base time series forecasting. And I probably know or expect there in the future for this approach to be more widely researched as we go into the future, especially by quant funds if it's not already, which it likely is. But yes, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Definitely reach out to the platform to submit your forecast if you have a model that you'd like to test out. And I look forward to seeing what everyone does with this type of forecasting platform, and what type of models will end up being number one in forecast accuracy.